Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with the Thanksgiving edition of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, your family and friends. Hope you're having a great day filled with wonderful things to eat, good company, and lots of companionship. During the Civil War, Thanksgiving could be a variable occasion depending upon where you were and how close you were to supplies. To illustrate the point, I looked into some accounts from the Civil War period, Thanksgiving in camp, and I have five examples to share with you passages of what exactly it was like for various individuals. So I want to start with 1861, November of 1861. Edgar M. Newcomb of the 19th Massachusetts Infantry in camp outside of Poolesville, Maryland. Here's what he has to say. The program for the day was excellent, but ill performed. The dining and dancing hall, which should have been finished the night before, was not ready till 5 p.m. of the 21st. Therefore, the exhibitions intended to amuse the men were postponed. However, the officers and invited guests to the number 100 sat down to dinner. With my usual fortune, I arrived as the last seat was taken, and when at last room had been made, I flourished my knife over turkey and potatoes preparatory to dining. Colonel Hinks arose to speak, and of course, all gustatory exercises was at an end. With becoming patience, I waited till toasts and speeches were ended and the assembly dismissed. But the victuals were stone cold, and a violent colic followed. In the evening, we had a ball. The ladies invited from Baltimore were beautiful, the music excellent. But a friend delivering me letters from Charles, Lila, and mother, I bolted incontinently from the room to my home. 'Twas my Thanksgiving dinner indeed, and let no one, even my constant brother Charlie, think for a moment that letters any rarer or shorter could be pleasanter. About 2 next morning, the assembly dissolved, not for a few, the worse for champagne and sherry, which flowed like water all the afternoon and evening. Next day, we formed a hollow square to witness the climbing of a greased pole after $5. Many were the aspirants, but 10 feet was the utmost limit of their skill and endurance. Next followed a race in bags, where the racer was not even permitted the use of his arms. The experiment was most successful in raising the laughter of the crowd as the poor contestants hopped and fell and rolled helplessly in the inexorable gunnies. A football game between the two wings of the regiment was projected but not executed. So that's the first passage. Here's the second passage from John H. Rhodes of the 1st Rhode Island Light Artillery in Northern Virginia in 1862. Rhodes says, November 27th was Thanksgiving Day in Rhode Island. To a soldier in the field, one day was the same as another, Sundays not excepted. For when not fighting, we had drill and inspection of equipments and quarters. And after the regular camp duties were over, we found no Thanksgiving dinner of roast turkey and accompaniments, mince pie, plum pudding, etc., awaiting our inspection. No, the soldier knocking at the enemy's door may be thankful if, after a hard fight or a long and fatiguing march, he secures a pot of coffee and a few hardtack to satisfy his empty stomach. A piece of salt pork or salt junk, in addition, was considered a great treat. Here's the next account, also from 1862. This is George T. Stevens of the 77th New York Infantry in Maryland. Stevens says, the 27th of November was Thanksgiving Day in nearly all the loyal states, and doubtless our friends at home, as they gathered in many a family circle that day to partake bounteous Thanksgiving dinners, spoke of those who were away at the war and thought that with them, Thanksgiving could only be a hard day's march in the rain or mud with rations of hard bread and pork, and so many kind hearts pitied the soldiers as they thought that we were deprived of the luxuries which they were enjoying. But we too enjoyed a pleasant Thanksgiving. In the morning, throughout the Corps, there was brigade inspection. We put on our good clothes and presented ourselves to our generals, looking our best. Then, as we marched back into the various camps, we found dinner smoking in many a cook pot and the odor of roast meats rising throughout the whole Corps like an odor of sweet incense. Fresh sheep pelts hanging here and there in considerable profusion told of good cheer among all the men. As evening approached, the voice of singing was heard from all the camps, and groups were gathered under the shadow of the chestnut trees, where many pairs of government shoes were shuffling to the music of violins. Throughout the limits of the Corps, good humor and mirth prevailed. The sick forgot their pains, and the homesick ones, for the time, looked bright as they yielded to the general feeling of happiness. Here's an account from Thomas Wentworth Higginson of the 1st South Carolina Colored Infantry, later designated the 33rd U.S. Colored Infantry. This is taking place in 1862 in South Carolina, their home state, where the freedmen, former enslaved men, formed a regiment. Higginson says this about them, quote, "The men seem to have enjoyed the novel event of Thanksgiving Day. They have had company and regimental prize shooting, a minimum of speeches and a maximum of dinner, a bill of fare, 2 beef cattle, and 1,000 oranges. The oranges cost a cent apiece, and the cattle were sash." So there's Higginson's take on Thanksgiving for a group of black soldiers in blue. Last account for you comes from Meade Holmes of the 21st Wisconsin Infantry out in Tennessee with his regiment pretty far away from everything. Here's what Meade has to say. "Shall I give you a little bit of our interior life? What else can I write about? We receive no papers, of course, know nothing of the outside world. Do send us papers. We are starving for something to read." He's writing to his family back home. He continues, "Our camp is now neatly cleaned and ditched. Thanksgiving Day dawned. We thought of home. No rations of any account were on hand, but we drew before noon crackers and bacon, of which I am sick enough. But I got a loaf of good wheat bread, which I agreed for 10 days since, some potatoes, eggs, cheese, and butter. So I had quite a feast. I also made a pudding. But I am quite ashamed to tell you to what straits we are reduced in our culinary department. We mixed crackers, dried apples, cooked rice, meal, eggs, and cloves with water. Now to bake it. An oyster can is pail, kettle, and general cooking utensil. 2 more cans were found and melted apart. Then of 2 made 1 cylinder, enclosing the said pail of pudding, then a plate over all, and cover the whole with hot ashes. Did ever a servant girl do better? We were immediately called out for inspection, after which I procured a pass and went 1.5 miles out for some things I had agreed for when on picket. Returned just before dark and found my pudding done to a turn. It was better than any plum pudding at home. Enough of this. I'm sure you will regret that the dawn of our manhood is spent thus. It is indeed no pleasure to us, but the necessity is upon us to do this or worse." So there you have it. On this Thanksgiving Day, some perspectives of what Thanksgiving was like in camp, various regiments in the Union Army in 1861, 1862, in 1863. Take care. Best wishes for a happy day. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.